It's there, bro. We're on, bro. We are live. I would almost believe that you're frozen, but your fan is spinning, so I can see the fan. Oh my God. It's been a long day.
Yeah.
Okay, that one's set up. Yeah, it's been a long day, man. Long, but you know what? Today was nice and cool. We had a little bit of rain and I don't know, it was a pretty good day. Pretty good day. Boy. But it's gonna be an exciting night tonight. We got Dr. Akhter,
Murtaza Akhter.
Murtaza Akhter,
Yeah.
Akhtar. He's all the way on the East Coast. He unfortunately I didn't get a chance to watch CNN, but he was apparently he was on CNN tonight at 6 o'clock, and he's gonna join us at 7, which is 1 a.m. So it's gonna be interesting. I hope he had a lot of coffee because he's an energetic guy.
Happy birthday, Tyson.
Oh yeah, by the way, Tyson's birthday today. He calls it the Portuguese Christmas Day because it's his birthday. So
Happy birthday, T.
happy birthday, happy
Saw his
birthday.
brother today, Brandon. Uh, what's good? I'd like to send a shout out to all the volunteers today. The food bank, Teddy Arroyo, and the Pop Warner. Um, the gentleman from Safety Signs. So many people came by today. The different companies, Corteva, Hartong, and of course Kikaha Ag Association, like Mike Fire. But all of this would not have been possible if it wasn't for the lovely and talented Stephanie Iona putting everything together, raising all the money, and for everything to give away. I mean, it was you know because of COVID. I mean, we would love to have played music and all of that, but it's all about um, passing out to the needy and also giving out pumpkins today. So it was um, it was something to behold. And I worked with some guys today, my old crew that we used to have when we used to work down in Kilauea, downpour and all. Those brothers just stayed with me and was very nice. So it went from we were there from 6:45 all the way to 1 o'clock, but it opened up at 9 o'clock. I would like to apologize to some people that was upset because of the traffic. Um, that's what happens when you have people who are needy and you have organizations that's willing to give out free food. That's bound to happen. And, we always try to do better. I know, I mean, we could have done it over in Lihui, but there's going to be others. But Kikaha did not have one under this organ. And it was to kind of complement the harvest festival that we have every year. You've been a part of it too, Mel, in the past, over at the Waimea Park. But because of COVID and the rest of that, we couldn't have rides. We couldn't bring the and but this was the next best thing. So want to say thank you to everyone who made it possible, and thank you for
Yep.
people for understanding. Coming through the line that they knew it was a long wait, and to those who didn't get anything at the very end, um, I feel bad, but I know people were lining up from way early in the morning. So that kind of tells you something. Remember those days when we used to have the gas ration? I remember my parents getting up early. They went by license plates, odd, even,
Yep.
and they would
Yep.
stand in line to get gas. Well, this was like it, but people walked away smiling. They had a lot of food, and it's heart wrenching to see some crying and thanking you. Um, that they one even said they didn't know where they're going to get their next meal, but at least they got provisions that's going to last them for some time. So we're glad about that. We're glad about that. Oh,
Well,
and
thank you.
we also want to thank Pepsi. They were there. They gave out some donations as well, and Isaki Produce and Waihata. Waihata was there as well. Okay. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and Steph and everybody else that was out there serving the community. Like you said, man, it paints a picture when you see that many people, people struggling, and that's the double-edged sword, of opening up the economy, opening up the visitor industry, because we got to get people back to work. We know that, and and it's here, obviously, day three, and well, yeah, today was day three, and we got a bunch of people back to work, and the tension is high, though. The tension throughout the island is high. Been reading the post today uh, on Facebook, and there's a lot of. I just sense the tension, and it's gonna get worse. So we got to continue to remind each other that we got to just protect ourselves. I mean, we got to, it's serious. This is, it's like it's almost like a dress rehearsal for the last several months, and then now it's showtime, and we cannot slip. We cannot forget that mask. We cannot forget to wash our hands. We just gotta be serious. And I did want to say, the press release came out about the one positive, one probable case on Kauai, and then everybody jumped on that as if it was because of the opening. It was not because of the opening. I mean, we're not going to see the numbers from the opening in a traditional sense for a while. Probably for a week, 10 days, something like that. And it because we don't have that second testing, so we're not going to be able to determine. The guy comes through with a negative test taken on the mainland, then that's it. He's free, whether he's positive or not. We saw what happened on the Big Island. The second test did catch one. I didn't. Dr. Miskovich last night said that they were working on a second one. We haven't heard confirmation if there was actually two, but the second test on Oahu or on the Big Island actually caught a suspected positive. Anyway, we didn't hear back whether or not the PCR came back positive or not. I didn't get a chance to watch the news tonight. So, but my point is that we're going to see more visitors on the island. We're going to see. I mean, I'm already seeing the posts. The stores, Walmart, are filled up with visitors loading up the carts, getting ready for their vacation. Some of them very rude, some of them not wearing masks. I just feel the tension, Charlie, and I just and while I don't blame the people because of the fear, we got to remember. We got to take care of ourselves and each other. If you don't have to go to the store, don't. It feels awkward because it feels like we are being punished. It feels like we are being restricted while the visitors have the free reign. Trust me, I'm not happy. I am definitely not happy about it. But we're gonna have to go through this, whether we like it or not. I know. I got messages today asking me to write a letter to the mayor, to write a letter to the governor. Listen, we've tried it all. We've sent the messages, we've sent the emails, we've called everyone we can possibly think of, doctors, epidemiologists, everybody, medical community has reached out to the governor and the lieutenant governor. It didn't work. They're fixed. They're fixed. They were fixed on opening on the 15th, and they did. Now we're seeing all the glitches, and that's the thing. I relate a lot of things back to football, but you got to prepare for the game. You cannot pussyfoot around and now as people watching the news and seeing the glitches come forward, the fact that the social distancing is not happening, the fact that people are coming through with tests that weren't um, uh, done at a trusted partner site, and the governor, because he freaked out because the planes piled up, passengers piled up, he approved the waiver of that. So any test facility that did a supposed test on these people were allowed to get through quarantine. So as we watch this things unfold, uh, it frustrates you because how many people now? Well, what it's been 3 days. I don't even know what the final count is. How many of these people are actually in our state right now, floating around and not even knowing if they're positive? So it's a scary time. So we focus on ourselves. We focus on taking care of ourselves. And I obviously one of two things going to happen, right, Charlie? We talk about this every night, and I'm dying to hear what Dr. Akhter has to say tonight. But one of two things: we get through this without an issue, and everything is fine and dandy. And then Uncle Charlie and Uncle Mel going to come live on Facebook and eat humble pie, or we're going to get to a point of positive cases where we got to start locking down
Well,
and sending people home. That's one of two things. That's what's going to happen, and we're going to find out probably within the next 2 weeks.
you know, I see some posts again. Somebody said, "Hey, people, let's not get paranoid." Okay, we try to be nice. I try to be nice, but I'll give you a good example. Certain games canceled in college football, right? Certain pro game canceled. People make the call. I'm gonna tell you this right now. Something happens, and then you've always heard me say this: that knee-jerk reaction, and they pull the trigger on that, and they shut us down for the third time. You mock. You can call me. You can call me anything you want. But to those people that say, "Don't get paranoid," that's what I was worried about. I don't even want to go near that because I don't think we're going to make it the third time. I'm being honest. I don't think we're going to make it. And you think that, oh, Uncle Charlie and Mel is paranoid? I can see if I'm paranoid if I worry about one spaceship landing on my house tonight. Okay, that's paranoid. What I'm worried about is whether the time comes that they do that and there's people that can suffer and his economy going to tank even worse than the second time. That's what I'm worried about. So, at least give me some credit for that. And if you don't want, fine. But I've been I've been this way. I've been set in my ways too long. I remember way back in the police department, same thing. And I said, if you can do good, you tell the truth, I tell the truth, let the judge decide. And you know what? I walked out of that courtroom more times than the bad guys did. So I'm just saying this right now. For those who think that we paranoid, it's not paranoia. It's just that we want to stay away from that third shutdown. Now, I don't know if you can get it to your head or not, but that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I saw a post today from a yoga instructor out in Kilauea, basically saying that she had just come back. The mainland is all fine. People walking around. There is no issue on the mainland. I'm like, wow. You know, I really don't have an issue if you disagree with my opinion. I mean, I think that's what this whole thing is about. But that's not a true statement. If you just look at the cases and look at the reports coming out of not the fake news organizations, but the real news and the government websites that put out the numbers. Everybody's freaking out with the way the numbers are surging on the mainland. They're scared because the weather's getting cooler, people going to be indoors, and we're in the flu season. So really. So I blocked her. I don't block too many people, but I blocked her because that's when you put out that's false information. That's false information. And we have Dr. Murtaza Akhter just gonna be popping up any moment now. I hope he
There
has
he
his.
is.
Oh, the
Oh,
man, the myth, the legend, the man, the myth, the legend,
yep.
the mad doctor, the mad doctor.
We're not even 10 seconds in. You've already got me laughing. How are you guys doing?
Hey, we're doing
Good.
fine. Huh?
Good. Yeah.
Good to hear that.
I
Good to
mean,
see you guys again.
Yeah, we had a lot of people asking to bring you back, and appreciate you. I know it's 1 a.m. Where are you exactly?
I'm in Pennsylvania right now.
Pennsylvania. And
For-
I mean, you work. Looks like you're working.
Yeah, I got home just a little while. Well, I guess now over an hour ago. But yeah, I was on shift earlier and just got home a little bit recently, and and here I am.
Are you living in Pennsylvania now?
No, it's so even back early in the year, I was working in Pennsylvania a little bit, but usually I'm in Arizona, as you guys know.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, I was supposed to Pennsylvania in April, and then because of quarantine policies and everything, we nixed that. But then policies changed a little bit, and I had some shift schedule in October. And so took a long drive over so as to not be in airports and airplanes.
You
we came
drove from Arizona to
long drive.
Pennsylvania?
It was a long drive, yeah.
It took you like a week and a half?
It took us just under a week because we made
Oh.
stops here and there. So yeah, we did it nice and slowly and relaxedly. It was almost like a mini vacation. But yeah, we made it here, and then I've been doing shifts here, and so a little bit later here than it would be in Arizona, but I've become kind of a night owl. Not really a night owl, but somewhat with my shifts. And as you know, Mel had an interview just a little while ago, so this is the nightcap, I guess.
This is the one, man. This is the one. All right. So we got a lot of fans here on tonight. We have a lot of people that have no idea who the heck you are right now.
Okay.
So why don't we take a minute or so and just share with us and our newer viewers who you are and what you do and and how you got the Mad Doctor nickname.
So, I actually didn't even know that was one of my nicknames until just now. But so I'm Dr. Murtaza Akhter. I'm an emergency physician, and I'm also an assistant professor at the University of Arizona College of Medicine in Phoenix. So I've got a lab where I do research, and then I also see patients clinically and teach residents and students. And as we mentioned earlier, right now I'm working in Pennsylvania, doing some shifts here, also at an academic center with residents and students. But usually I'm in Phoenix, and basically because of the pandemic and how badly it hit Arizona earlier. I was on some interviews, and next thing you know, I was on a bunch of interviews and basically, saying what it's like in the ER. And then it became, what the issue is with our government leaders and healthcare politics, et cetera. And I guess I have an earnest way of saying things that apparently comes off to some people as angry or mad. But the way I look at it is, there's a global pandemic happening, and my genetics are such that my granddad is from Lahore, and so we speak with passion, just as the people that we are, is what I like to say, because we care a lot. And if I were to not care during a global pandemic, when would I possibly ever care? So I get animated in general. But I think this is the time to be especially forceful. And I guess to some people that came off in a certain way that for some is endearing, for some is maybe off-putting, but I'm just telling you like it is, what I feel, what I'm seeing. And it turns out that oftentimes it's in line with, what the experts are saying. And, sometimes I've made wrong predictions, but the point isn't predictions so much. It's why the heck are people being idiots is the short of it. Anyway, it feels like it's no different than it was when I last spoke with you guys, with the caveat that you guys got hit with a surge of your own in that time, and what a surge it was. Yeah, I mean, it just seems like we as a society have given up, is what it feels like, and so we're going to be in this for the long haul, unfortunately.
Well, you are a perfect. Let me real quick, Charlie. We got to do this. We got to do this right now because we forgot to do this earlier. If that was just that was just the start, ladies and gentlemen. So go ahead and hit the share button. Start your watch party. Doc, you are a perfect fit for this show. Like the last time, there's no censorship. No, you say what you want. You say how you want it. And as Dr. Dara O'Carroll, one of our favorite doctors here in Hawaii, he said on our show, now is not the time to be worried about hurting people's feelings. We need to speak the truth, and that to me, Doc, is all you, man. That's all you. So
that's a smart doctor, really smart doctor. Who, if he said that, that's exactly right. This is not the time. there's a place for, compassionate care and everything. But when people say calmly, it hasn't worked. I feel like even when people said angrily, it hasn't worked. But there's a reason. We're not just talking heads, right? We're on the front lines. We're seeing it. Charlie has experienced it personally with his family. I don't know how else people need to be told. This is crazy, but people like us, we're going to keep telling the truth, and if people don't listen, we're going to keep speaking until they listen. And if they still don't listen, we're still going to keep telling the truth, because that's our job. That's your guys' role with your show, is to get the message out, get information out. And my job as a physician, whether it's on a pandemic or otherwise, is not just to treat, but to educate. And I don't mean just residents and students, but I mean patients, because there's not a magic pill for everything. There are things that need to be taught to people, and this is one of them. And it's unfortunate that our populace seems to just not want, for a society that's got so many smart people and a school system that's so well built up, to be the laughing stock of the world for something that everybody knows the answer to is really amazing.
Mm-hmm. Doc, I wanted to ask you, because we're heading into opening up our borders now.
Yeah.
And some people take the fear, and some people call it, you're just being paranoid. But I wanted to ask you, because now you're back on the East Coast. I know when we talked to you, Hawaii sort of followed Arizona in a sense on how you folks started one time and all of a sudden decided to ramp up at one time, and you were on the front lines in your ER treating. And I remember you saying that, more often than none, the end result was kind of grim, because, people are coming in really sick, not having enough bed space and all of that. But I wanted to find out from you, because Hawaii has a tendency, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's a fingerprint or something that you can say that as us in the US and Hawaii, of course, being part of the United States, is sort of like this following process that as the rest of the states start to go in this surge, I mean, what do you see for Hawaii? I mean, we're trying everything. And right now, the numbers are, and it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell because we're not getting the numbers like we used to, as far as the reports. So we can just only assume certain things, but it's on the low end. Did you see that before when it went on the low end where you're at on the East Coast as well as the West Coast? And then all of a sudden, bingo, the thing starts climbing again for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great way of describing it, which I know seems like maybe not the most researchy answer. But basically, when I was in Arizona, I went into shift 1 week and, things were what they were. And then I went in a few days later the next week and I was like, what the hell just happened? And so, I guess that's an anecdotal experience. But then you look at the graphs too. You look at Hawaii and it's just like, fine. And then boom. And part of that has to do with, community transmission and how testing is done and when it's done. But hospitalizations were also, spiked up in Hawaii as in Arizona. So it's not just testing. Obviously, people are getting sick. And man, it's that's why people talk about the rate of transmission so much. What's the effective rate of transmission or reproduction? Because, if it's below 1, you can reduce the number of cases. But if it's above 1, that means they're increasing. And at some points in time, they're quite high, where if one person gets sick, now exponentially, a lot of people will. And I think that's sort of how these surges work. And the ones who are in public health and epidemiology know this. The curves go as almost as they would expect, especially this far in when we know a little bit more about the disease. But I think all of us in every one of these states, almost every one of these states experience basically this surge. And so, for example, in Arizona, we thought we'd get in April based on the predictions. It didn't happen. We thought we'd flatten the curve. But remember, flattening the curve doesn't just mean that the curve goes away. Flattening the curve means that instead of going like this, it'll just be, a little bit flatter, but stay up there. But instead, we stayed flat and did spike and then came back down, but not to be at a level that's good enough. It's still, for example, move outside of Arizona just a couple of weeks ago, the White House had more new cases. The White House that runs our country and has more resources than anyone the White House had more cases than the whole country of New Zealand.
Mhm.
I mean, that is mystifying and horrible that a whole country had fewer cases than our seat and our head of government in that one house. And so, well, for one, that's how quickly things can spread. And two, the issue is it's not going away because we're just not controlling it. So even when that surge comes down, the spike comes down, now you're seeing, as a country, a little bit of a wave up. And granted, it's because there's certain states who are now having their worst surges, North Dakota, Wisconsin, the upper Midwest, basically. But that's not to say that the other states are totally fine. There are some states that have done quite well. Vermont did pretty well. But in all these other states, it's still simmering, waiting to surge. And if it doesn't, great. But that's not what we've seen, for example, even in other countries who did a better job, where they've had second waves. And so we're just basically humming along with our cases. And the unfortunate thing is, it means we can't even remotely go back to normal. And not that we should all, start coughing on each other and hugging each other regardless. But we're not even close to that. It's ironic because for the people who want to go back to normal, who are most fighting for us to open up the economy, they're the ones who are doing the least to make it go back to normal. They're the ones who are making it as bad as possible, which is really the irony of it all.
And this kind of brings us, and we are going to respect your time, Doc, because I know it's very late over there. So we're gonna, we're just gonna hit you hard real quick. But that's kind of the dilemma we're in right now. The United States, as we hear from all the experts, obviously we know a lot of states, somewhere around 40 states are surging right now, and the experts are saying as we go into the colder weather, the winter, and with the flu virus floating around as well, that they expect the next wave to be coming, and it's going to be a bad wave. That's kind of what I've been hearing generally. And Hawaii, as you know, we had that big spike, and it was always the intention of Hawaii, our government, to open up to tourism. And initially, I guess it was set for August and then September, but we had those big surges, thank God, in a way, because it kind of pushed off the opening of the state. But they couldn't hold on any longer. So on the 15th, we opened up, basically. And you probably already know this. Again, we don't coach our guests, so he has no idea what we're going to ask him, viewers. But on the 15th, leading up to that, they had expected a very small, a gradual uptick of passengers coming in daily. They were saying, probably 3,000, 4,000, maybe up to 5,000. Well, on day one, on the 15th, we had over 10,000 arrivals that they weren't prepared for. But this is the question I really want to talk about tonight is, and you may know this, they're allowing people to come in from the mainland with one pre-test 72 hours prior to departure. If you take one pre-test from, regardless of what zone, hot state, cool state, Vermont, doesn't matter. You get a test within 72 hours of your departure time. You arrive in Hawaii, you have a negative test. You have absolutely no quarantine. That is where we're at today. The Big Island, they got approval from the governor to do a second test upon arrival. They already caught one positive that had tested negative on their pre-test, so they were able to catch that. The other islands, we don't have a second test. So basically, you come from New York or wherever, you take that one test 72 hours before, and you get to come in without any quarantine. What's your thoughts on that? Is that risky? Is that we know that it kind of narrows down or the risk a little bit, but how risky is that for our people here in Hawaii?
Well, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I drove all the way here, despite it being a long drive, precisely to avoid an airplane, and in particular an airport. Believe it or not, airplane might be okay based on the filtered air, from as long as the person right next to you and the few people around you aren't sick, which in and of itself is a gamble. But I know for a fact that when you're dropping off bags or in line waiting for TSA to frisk you, like people who look like me get frisked, there aren't air filters there. And so you are exposed in multiple situations in often close quarters. And as somebody described, it's like being in a closet full of like 200 people when you're on that airplane. And so My fear isn't even as much, they talk about the pre-test, which is great and great, the testing people. But how about the plane ride and the airport and the airport both on the way in and the way out? And so when people, if there's all it takes is, a couple people on that plane to be sick, I don't know they're trying to enforce masks, but some planes are clearly better than others. Clearly some airlines are better than others about this. Now potentially a ton of people on that plane are infected. Remember, the White House had infection spreading everywhere. That was the White House. How do you expect economy people like me who are sitting, in coach to not infect others? So when they land, they've got a test that's negative from before they were even on the plane, okay, from before when they were in the airports. And like you said, there are apparently thousands and thousands of people just waiting for Hawaii to open up so they can come and bring whatever germs they have to your state. And maybe some of them are very conscious of being distanced and wearing masks. But imagine the first people on the first day or the first days who are rushing to get to Hawaii are probably not the people who have been the most respectful of distancing guidelines. Just a crazy guess. Just a crazy guess that on the first
you
day.
hit it on the head, Doc. You hit that right on the head. And in fact, when they were taking on the news, they showed the video of, in fact, even the governor's press conference when he was talking about how great we were doing. The line of people that stretched across that terminal, they weren't practicing social distancing.
Yeah.
They were not. And then there's also you have an option of not taking a test and coming to Hawaii and staying in quarantine. But those people, heaven knows. I mean, you cannot tell who's carrying, who's a carrier, and it's scary. I mean, I gotta tell you, man, there's a lot of people in Hawaii right now that's very afraid of what's to come.
Well, and as they should be. And again, I'm not trying to be a fear monger here. I mean, it's just, the alternative is people ignoring the clear facts. And we know when things open up, things get worse. And some of that is expected, right? At some point you're like, well, if things get worse, but only mildly, maybe we're willing to accept that risk. For that many people to come in that soon, to not be distancing, being who knows how good about masks. And this quarantine, by the way, that you mentioned, is effectively optional. It's not like there's military guards standing outside your apartment watching you, right? You say you're in quarantine, but again, the thousands of people who are just waiting to get to Hawaii probably aren't the people who are like, yeah, I'll go to Hawaii and then quarantine for 14 days, because that's why I flew to Hawaii, so I could stick myself in a room for 14 days. That is ridiculous. Nobody's flying to Hawaii to be enclosed in quarantine for 2 weeks, right? We know why people go to Hawaii. Again, if they've got their own mansion there, fine. But I know that 10,000 people didn't fly in on that day to their own private mansions on Hawaii. I know that. We all know that. And so I think this is a risky move. I know the economy is hurting. I know there's a heavy tourism industry there. But given the kind of country we have, the kind of populace we have, there's almost no way there won't be a spike. There's almost no way there won't be a spike from this. Because it's both intra-island travel as well as, from the mainland, people coming, and that's just going to spread virus.
Real quick, Charlie, I got a real quick follow-up. Now, the proposal by the mayors were to allow the mayors, the counties, to have a mandatory second test, that they would come into quarantine. They would have to come in quarantine, take a test on day 3 or day 4. And once they're cleared after that second test in quarantine, then they would be able to enjoy the rest of their vacation. That would, according to the experts we've spoke to, I mean, the experts really wanted to see 6-day quarantine, but a 4-day mandatory quarantine with a second test on day 4 would reduce the risks significantly, right?
That's exact. If you do it that way, yeah. I mean, I think I would say 5 days is I think the experts are saying 6. I would say 5 days is probably about right. But yeah, I mean, even 4, if you can have people quarantine for 4 and then test them, and then you can trace people too. I think that would be very effective. Now, the rest of the United States hasn't figured that out, like other countries have.
Well, neither has Hawaii.
But Hawaii, yeah. Maybe Hawaii will pull it off, and one of the things, for better or for worse, if a state is in such dire straits of wanting to open up, listen, the NBA, you guys maybe watch, NBA finals just happened, right? They, throughout the finals, had 0 cases of COVID. I mean, these guys were in a bubble and managed to have no COVID at all. So it clearly works. I mean, it's just like, and by the way, these are people who, let's just be honest, they're young, virile, healthy males. not old farts like I am. So in theory, they could get around and have fun, whatever. But they respected the bubble, they stayed in it, and it clearly worked. And so we know that kind of thing works. And then similarly, if people, quarantine for even if it's 4 days and get a negative test, it would so dramatically reduce the spread. I'm not saying it would be perfect, but it would so dramatically reduce the spread that you could potentially even enjoy a vacation. Now, again, there are some people who aren't getting tested. There are locals. There are some people who aren't going to be in that 4-day policy. And that's if the policy even passes. So you have to be careful whom you're around and what other people are carrying. And nothing is perfect. But yes, if you could have people, honestly, if you could have the whole country just, locked down for a week, 2 weeks is what people, if you could lock down the whole country for 2 weeks and test everyone, imagine how much you could reduce the cases. Imagine if we could just lock down, 2 weeks sounds horrible. Imagine if we could lock down for 2 weeks instead of living like this for months and months and for who knows how much longer. So Hawaii may be on the right thing if they do it the right way. If they really have a strict, tracking application, for example, people follow quarantine and people are tested and tracked and traced, they could be the example for the rest of the country. The unfortunate thing is we've had other countries as examples and we just haven't followed suit. So even if Hawaii gets it right, I'm pessimistic for the rest of us, but it'd be really nice if at least Hawaii got it right. But I'm pessimistic even about that because you've heard different governors and different politicians say different things. And so we'll see what the counties end up doing. I hope they make the right moves, but time will tell.
Doc, I wanted to ask you, because it's the flu season, if someone should come down with the flu and COVID both at the same time, is there a way of tracking predominance which is actually taking hold? I know with the flu you have a flu shot, right? With COVID you don't. But if and both are respiratory, right? So
Correct.
if you get nailed with both of them, is there a method that you, as your ER physician yourself, you'll be able to, if there's a test there that can tell what's the predominant one at that time?
As a physician, from the clinical standpoint, basically no. Obviously we test them for COVID and test them for flu, but if they're both positive, then you don't know which one is a more, as you said, prominent one in that particular patient. There are maybe some ways of looking at, you could try doing loads, viral loads, but that's not something we do in the ER, that we down the line. So when you're managing the patient in front of you, you gown up, you mask up. By the way, I was doing this with flu patients too. And I used to joke for many years that, people, oh, you must see such crazy stuff. And I was like, there's nothing scarier than an 8-year-old snot-nosed kid. Because an 8-year-old snot-nosed kid, that kid can infect me. But your severely septic, elderly, bacteremic patient, probably, that person is sick, but not necessarily the most infectious. And so even for flu patients, it was probably wise to mask up at the very least, if not more. But the reason COVID is particularly concerning is because it's so much more virulent and so much more lethal that when you combine the two, it's significantly worse than flu. And remember, flu unfortunately, we've gotten accustomed to. It's kind of like car accidents, and I see this in the ER too, by the way. Drunk drivers, they come in, horrible shape, they've killed other people, and it's just like horrifying that somebody died because somebody else was driving drunk. But we as a society have become immune to that. I wish we had really lot stricter laws against drunk driving, but basically it's a slap on the wrist until you've done it like 10 times. I've seen so many of these cases that they repeatedly drive drunk, repeatedly crash, potentially kill people. But clearly society will accept it. And I think that's a bad thing. And similarly, we've done that with flu, where we're like, okay, people are gonna die, but it's part of life. With COVID, at the very least, we've said this isn't normal. And so that's good. It's not normal. It's even worse than our typical badness is. And so I'm glad people are at least a little bit more vigilant about it. But in theory, we should always be masking with infectious diseases. We should always be keeping our distance with infectious diseases. So in some sense, whether it's flu or COVID, we should be taking those precautions regardless of which one is more prominent. And I'm hoping that in your guys' state and in Arizona, that the flu issue is hopefully not quite as bad, hopefully, because remember the winter for us is actually kind of nice. But here on the East Coast where I am right now, I just came home from my shift and I was like shivering. I don't know what happened over the course of the day. We got real cold at night, and that means people are going to stay indoors. And we know what happens from centuries of data when people stay indoors. That's why they call it catching a cold, is because in cold weather people go in. You don't literally catch cold. you go indoors and you spread viri. And so that's the real fear with flu season coming up, is especially in states that are normal states, unlike Arizona, where it's the inverse. People are going to be staying indoors more and spreading more virus. And again, from the ER standpoint, if they're sick, they're sick. We don't necessarily know in the ER which one is more prominently affecting them. But the co-infection question is a very important one. It's something we've looked at. We're actually looking at some of our data right now to see how often are people co-infected with two viri at the same time, or how often people have strep throat and flu at the same time, which I didn't even think was a thing, but it's actually pretty common. And so that's something we're analyzing right now, and we'll see what the data bear out.
Thank you.
Are you, I remember there was a time in Hawaii anyway, and probably for the same reason you just described, that most people stay outside. It's hot, it's warm, tropical. But I remember early on, doctors that came on the show said that they were actually not finding any, people came in with flu-like symptoms, were tested for flu and COVID, and almost none tested positive for flu, and it was all COVID. Is that kind of what you guys are seeing on the mainland as well?
I mean, flu season in theory hasn't quite hit yet. And so now there's a couple issues, right? Because earlier in the season, we had limited tests and limited swabs. So for example, if you thought somebody might have flu or might have COVID, might have strep, you'd be like, well, if it's flu or strep, we're just going to leave it and ignore it. We're saving our swabs for just COVID, because that's the one we really need to know. So even if flu rates didn't look as bad, it may have been partially because we weren't testing as often, because we only had so many tests in general. Because it's not just, do you have a COVID test, it's, do you have the swabs? Do you have the viral medium? Do you have the reagent? Do you have the lab supplies to be able to run it? And so sometimes we were testing less for strep and for flu, et cetera, just because of the pandemic. But now that we're later and have a little bit more testing available to us, now we're waiting basically for the flu season to hit. We haven't quite hit it yet, even on the East Coast. At least my experience is I haven't seen like your typical flu patients yet. But we'll see. We're just entering. I just got my flu shot last week, and for whatever predicted, flu will come this winter. And so the worst of it is usually probably about December or so. It's later in Arizona, presumably in Hawaii too. But the worst of it will probably start around December, January. And remember, these are, I don't know what this Thanksgiving will bring. I don't know what this Christmas will bring, but these are also spreader events, right? People get together for Thanksgiving, they get together for Christmas, they're traveling, they're meeting up with each other, they're laughing rambunctiously like we Americans do. I mean, it's good to have fun, but clearly that spreads germs, especially during the holidays. And again, that's a risk we take every year. This year, it'll be particularly risky. And I just don't imagine people are just gonna stay home and not do Christmas this year. I think a lot of people are still gonna do the holidays. And then we'll really see, how badly does flu spread and how badly does COVID spread as the post-holiday, presumably the post-holiday surge happens. We might get lucky, but I'd be shocked if in the winter, in January in particular, after the holidays and in cold weather, we don't have a massive surge in the country. I think the health experts are predicting it. And I know in the ER, we see it even outside of a pandemic. So I'm sure we'll see it again. And hey, maybe I'll move to Florida before this Christmas comes, and then I'll luck out. But otherwise, I think we're probably in dire straits.
I wanted to ask about the testing, with regards to rapid antigen testing and the gold standard, which is the PCR, the RT-PCR. It almost seems as if they're applying the antigen testing first, just to, I guess, because it's rapid and it gets a read. Now they really want to know, I guess the PCR goes in to really look at whatever it looks at. I mean, it seems like the standard that they're doing now. Is that what you folks do in emergency medicine?
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. That's a great question. Honestly, I didn't even know that's what they were doing until a friend brought it up. And then he said, well, I don't think it was a PCR, I think it was a rapid antigen. I was like, what? So we had this big debate in our group chat about what kind of test was it, and because in the ER we've been doing basically a PCR test, and so it's the coronavirus PCR wherever I am, and so when people say rapid test, I assume they always meant rapid PCR, and then only recently did I come to learn that when they're not in the ER, they're getting their testing wherever. Sometimes they're not even getting the PCR test; they're getting, like you said, the rapid antigen test. And so I guess that's why words matter so much in the field of medicine. And honestly, there were a lot of snake oil salesmen who came up too during the pandemic who were selling all sorts of weird tests that made no sense. And so there's a reason people say Hawaii was saying, we're going to only use these labs and these tests, and got a lot of people coming at us. We're trying to choose the right ones, and because it's important, because who knows what kind of tests people are doing or buying. But I have heard that people are doing the rapid antigen tests, and only if they want confirmatory evidence, they're doing the PCR. But remember, even the PCR wasn't 100%, which is kind of weird to say, because you would argue that isn't that the gold standard. That's more of a research question, and how quickly you test them. If you test somebody too soon, the PCR might not be positive yet. If you test them later, it's more likely to, depending on where you are in the curve of the inoculation. But obviously rapid antigen then is going to be far less sensitive. And so that's not to say it's, not better than nothing. But in the ER, back to the question of in the ER, everywhere I've been, we've been doing the PCR testing.
Because, I'm going to finish up the question or just with a comment. Because from what I heard, as an example, PCR test, 99.8, the sensitivity and specificity, so, if you look at the number 99.8, they round it off to 100. But I know CDC, FDA, and everybody says, you can't say that because it's not 100, it's 99.8, and you leave it at that.
Yeah,
So,
and even honestly, from my experience, even 99.8 seems a little bit high. Actually seems significantly high, because again, what a testing company tells you versus what it's like in the population is different no matter what you're talking about. So for example, if you're a cancer company, you can say my test is 99 whatever percent sensitive. But if I take that test, because that's 99% sensitive in the population they tested in, which might be just in vitro, might be in mice. If I take it to the population, if all of a sudden I start testing patients who aren't the ideal candidate, it might not be 99% sensitive. And the analogy here would be, say I have a test that's a COVID PCR that maybe is 99.8% sensitive. If I nail it at the right time, well, if I test you too early, say you got COVID yesterday, if I do the PCR test today, it probably isn't 99.8% sensitive. Yes, a week from now, maybe it will be, or even 5 days from now, or 2 weeks from now. But the day after, probably not. So it's not just how sensitive is the test, but also what is the negative predictive value if the test is negative in a certain patient. And that involves actually the prevalence of the disease and also what sample you're testing. So it gets a little bit more complicated statistically, even if the test is of a really high standard. And so the way we have to look at it is, when we see patients, what does that percentage mean, rather than just what does it mean in isolation in a laboratory.
Doc, I'm going to share my screen real quick. I just wanted to show you, this is what this pre-travel testing, this is what we're requiring. It's all travelers ages 5 and over will be required to take a nucleic acid amplification test, a NAT test from a certified clinical laboratory improvement, blah, 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 in order to bypass. So they have this trusted partners throughout the mainland that you can go get is the nucleic acid amplification test, is that the PCR test?
So, I mean, nucleic acid generally, DNA is deoxyribonucleic acid, and then RNA is ribonucleic acid. So I'm assuming they're talking about amplification of that nucleic acid, which would be generally PCR. That's what PCR is, a polymerase chain reaction that effectively amplifies your DNA strands. And so I'm assuming that what they're requiring here, based on the sheet that you're showing me, is effectively that they want a PCR rather than just an antigen test. And so that's kind of nice that they want nucleic acid amplification. If they're actually looking for PCR, which is what this suggests, that's a better test than, for example, definitely better than antibody, but even better than an antigen.
What is this one here? You ever seen anything like this?
Vault COVID-19 test kit. Okay, 150 per person, wow. Click on the learn more. If you can click on the learn more, I'd be interested to see whether this is a PCR or not. But it looks like a saliva test based on what I'm seeing, or at the very least.
It's a saliva test.
Okay. Oh yes, it is saliva. Okay. Okay. And I'm assuming this is an amplification, but let's see. Oh, good. A YouTube video. Yeah. Okay. They've kept it real basic here, but there have been some decent results from saliva testing, at least the prelim data. Obviously in the ER we don't do that. I'm not sure if this video says anything about PCR or not, but
Yeah, I just trying to, because we had always heard, in fact, our governor, when he first came out, said he would not allow any uh, at-home testing, but that changed. I'm trying to find out what I guess this is, how does the test work? Here we go. It's pretty much doesn't tell you anything about the technical or medical part of it. How accurate, here we go. RT-qPCR test is very sensitive for the presence of SARS-CoV with 985 of tests providing either a positive or a negative and only 2% providing an inconclusive result.
oh, there goes a two. So now they're saying about 98 there. Okay, but again, remember you have to question what sample they studied that on, because if they're only looking at 5 days out, then I'm sure it's very sensitive. But remember, if you're doing it the day that guy infected, it's not going to be as sensitive.
Yeah, and I guess for me, my question was, if in fact this saliva test is so accurate, 98%, as they're saying, why the hell are we putting swabs down people's noses into the back of their brain to? You understand what I'm trying to say? I mean, if this test is 98% accurate, then I'd rather spit in a bottle any day. I had the COVID test. Trust me, I don't like that.
Yeah.
I'd rather spit in a tube.
I think, I've got PTSD from when I had to spit in a tube in 9th grade, and it went all the way down the sides. It was spit everywhere. People were laughing at me, and I was like, I will never spit in a tube again. I'll just shove something down my throat or down my nose. And as a matter of fact, when I was in residency, we actually took a whole video camera and shoved it through my nose just because I wanted to see what it felt like. Because if I'm going to do the patients, I should see what it feels like to me. And I would take a whole video camera and shove it all the way down my throat to my glottis before spitting in a tube. I realize that makes me a special case.
Yeah.
But yeah, most people I think do probably prefer the salivation test. And I think we just needed enough data to be sure that it was accurate enough. If you have a test that truly is validated, whether saliva or otherwise, to be as sensitive and specificity is also helpful, but in particular sensitive, then I think that's just fine. I don't think you need to be necessarily swabbing down the nose, but that was sort of the gold standard that we were using leading up to now, and it still sort of is, and that's what we still do in the ER. But in particular for people who are, outpatient, if they want to do an at-home saliva test, I think that's probably a great idea if it's the right one, rather than driving to a place and having somebody test you if you don't have to be there. But again, the question is, what are the goals of the testing? If it's curiosity, it's one thing. If it's for going back to work, it's another. If it's for traveling, it's yet another. And remember, the crux of the issue here, I don't want people watching thinking, okay, I'll just spit in a vial and go fly to Hawaii. Because you can spit in a vial all you want, but once you go to the airport, once you go into the airplane, into a closet of people in the fuselage, and once you land, well, that all happened after you spit in a vial. And those exposures are still there. So that's still something to be concerned about, unless you quarantine for 4 or 5 days and spit in a vial again. And if you do the latter, I think you would be in quite good shape. But I just didn't imagine the latter is happening. I imagine people are going to spit in vials or get the swab before they get on the flight and then think they're magically okay. But that's not how it works, as you guys know.
Well, as we're going to find out real soon, I'm afraid.
Unfortunately, yeah.
I wanted to ask you, and I've asked several others, and we still kind of like had gone around the mulberry bush on this question, and that is, when somebody has COVID and they're no longer infectious, right? They've I don't know if the word is cured, because we hear all kind of reports that it stays in them, it'll resurge at some point. Something like, I guess, if you never had certain things, you can get shingles later on in life or whatever, the virus. Okay. A question arose where, because they're requiring the PCR, which is highly sensitive, right? And we've known of cases where the PCR will pick up those trace amounts of COVID in a person, even though the person may not be infectious. The question had been, because they're using this pre-test to get into Hawaii, some people, if they gone to a pre-test knowing that they had COVID in the past, maybe a month ago, and they want to fly to Hawaii, they take the PCR test, they're going to come up positive, and they get rid of those tests because, just because it doesn't quantify if you have enough in there to make you infectious or not. How do you view that? Like, I'm sure you worked on patients in the ER that may have had COVID. They're okay. They come in, but you COVID test them again, and boom, it pops up. How do you read it? Do you look at them like, hey, I treat it as they're positive, even though they might, yeah, okay,
If they test positive in the ER, absolutely. As a matter of fact, in the ER, when we admit patients, they could come in they need leg surgery. As a matter of fact, I had a patient just today who needed hip surgery and was just sitting in the ER for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours waiting for a COVID test. Had no respiratory symptoms, but needed a COVID test before she could go to the operating room or even be admitted. And so that patient had no symptoms at all. And if that patient comes back COVID positive, we treat them as COVID positive, even if they have no symptoms. So definitely if somebody's coming in with symptoms, even if they already had COVID earlier, if they test positive again, we treat them as being positive. Yes, it could be a remnant. It could be a remnant of the previous disease. But if you test positive, it means you have coronavirus particles in you. Now, it could be a false positive, but that's even rarer, I think. But regardless, if you test positive, we treat you as COVID positive and put you away from the other people who are COVID negative. We don't want people infecting each other in the hospital, infecting each other or healthcare staff. And so definitely in the ER, if somebody tests positive, regardless of what the previous results were, we treat them as positive. And if they happen to be going home, they need to isolate. Regardless of when they got the symptoms. If you test positive, you need to isolate, and that's what we've been saying.
okay, thank you.
I know you're on the East Coast right now. We talked about the Midwest. I don't know what it is today. I think yesterday they said we're like 50,000 new cases. Yesterday, I think it was yesterday. Kind of lost track of time, but I'm sure you guys talk, the doctors talk to each other. And is there any concern that we may hit 100,000 cases a day in the country as we get closer to the winter, the flu season, the winter season?
Yeah, I mean that may indeed happen. Now, one of the things is, some states do worse than others at varying times. We got this big grand country of ours, and so we've got different time zones, different climates, and so some might say, wow, 2,000 a day per state. That is quite a bit. But what effectively would more likely happen is that some of the worst states would have many thousands, and some of the better states that are small, like Vermont, won't even be close. But yeah, you could hit 100,000 a day. Just before our interview, just before the one I was on earlier in the evening, my friends and I were discussing whether we will. One of the friends asked, "Do you think we'll ever be able to track and trace? And when will we be able to do it?" And a bunch of us responded like almost like mockingly, "There's no way. There's no way we'll be able to track and trace. We haven't done it yet. Why would we do it now?" And so there's a very good chance that we'll hit a very high number of cases per day as the flu season approaches. Now, the other thing is, as flu season comes, there may also be a vaccine that hits. People are talking about maybe even early next year. Some are saying maybe even end of this year. I'm taking the politics out of it. I mean, obviously, we could talk for hours about the White House and their idiocy. But in terms of the actual vaccine, it seems like reasonable that at least by early next year we would have it. But that doesn't necessarily mean people will be vaccinated right away, right? People need to get vaccinated too. And so if people get vaccinated, which is another if, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's looking like there are going to be people who are not going to want to get vaccinated, which is amazing to me. But if people get vaccinated, that could help combat the surge of the flu season. And maybe we will, be able to manage whatever spike comes, if one comes. But that's a lot of ifs. I mentioned a lot of ifs in just my statement there. But there are a lot of ifs in that hope. So I think your thought of, might it be 100,000? I think it could be. And I think all of us in the healthcare are basically prepped for a tough winter. That's sort of what we're expecting, and we'll see what comes.
I know you guys are out there in the front line. I worry for you guys, all of the guys that's working on the front, nurses, doctors, everyone, all the staff, the employees of the hospitals. It's gotta, you guys are in a very dangerous place. But you mentioned the contact or the track and tracing, contact tracing. And it's not just for Hawaii, but for any state that deals with visitors coming in. And Charlie talks about this, where if you get a local resident of your town and they test positive, it's very easy to find out from them where they've been, who they've seen, who they've spoken to. But when you get a visitor, I mean, if I went to Pennsylvania to have coffee with you or have a beer, and and I did my shopping or with coffee shops or whatever, and I got unfortunately tested positive, and I'm in front of a contact trace, and they're asking me, where did you go? Who did you talk to? It's a lot more difficult to trace on a visitor than it is from a local resident. And I think that's one of the concerns for us here, and I'm sure in many other cities that have a lot of visitors, that the contact tracing got to be really tight and got to be Loctite, so we can track accurately, so we can actually try to isolate as much as we can. That's a big concern here.
Absolutely. I mean, if you've got a ton of visitors coming in and out, it's much harder to trace than if you're, for example, as I mentioned before, my wife was in Doha, and we were separated for many, many, many months, where they were vigilantly tracking everyone. Huge fines if you didn't have the app on you, huge fines if you weren't wearing a mask. Obviously, they can contact trace better than a country where it's just like, c'est la vie, most. Now, I will say that, in general, the most effective contact tracing is for the ones you are in close contact with. And so if you happen to go to a cash register and pay for your item and leave, that's contact, but it's probably short enough that it's not as high risk as, for example, being in a room with a loved one for an extended period of time. Those people really need to be tracked and traced. And so even when you look at other countries, when they do contact tracing, yeah, they ask what stores did you go to, where did you go out, et cetera. And of course, in other countries, or at least some other countries, people are better about not exposing themselves. But the most effective, the most high yield, let's put it that way, tracing is who were you in close contact with, which is defined by not just proximity, but also length of time, duration. And so if you're really close to somebody, but jogging across each other, probably not a huge deal. If you're in the same place for a long time, but very far apart, probably not a huge deal. But if you're reasonably close and together for a reasonable amount of time, then you've a very high, chance that there's a chance of spread. And those are the people who you need to really, really trace. And so even in Hawaii, it's doable. But you're right, it's much easier when you've got much stricter measures in place in terms of who can travel when, where, and how. But that's not to say that if you can't get everybody to stay in the same place, you shouldn't contact trace. It should still be done, and honestly should have been done before this went as crazy as it did. Now we're so deep in, when this community spread, it's hard to contact trace when so many people in the community have it. And so, there's multiple ironies here at play. And so I just don't want to seem like I'm a hater of testing. I like testing, but you can't just test and let people do what they want, right? That's like as I've said before, that's like my saying, oh, you've got cancer, good luck. Yeah, that's ridiculous. If I diagnose somebody with cancer, I want to tell them what the next steps are, whom to see next, set up appointments with hematology, oncology, more imaging, etc. Not just, we found it, now go get better. And similarly, if we do testing, you can't just be like, oh, yeah, COVID positive. Yeah, try to avoid people, whatever. People have to actually distance, and we have to actually be able to trace the people they were near for it to work. And if people decide to just not tell us, and that's happened. That's happened where people just don't want to say to the health experts who they were near because it's embarrassing for them. And there are people who test positive who still go to stores. Then it doesn't matter whether you've tested them. What does contact tracing matter then at that point, right? So a lot of things that play. Testing and tracing are great, but you got to do it the right way.
We did have an incident involving the bars, and the state got to a point that it was up against a brick wall. So they asked for public help. And the way, I guess the messaging was really wrong because they preferenced the whole thing by there's a spread at a gentleman's club. So they're asking if anybody was in a gentleman's club, please contact the Department of Health. What you gonna do? You gonna tell your wife, oh, I had to work late, honey. That type of thing. Right. So like what you said, everything has to go hand in hand. How do you message it? Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to almost entice a response, and
Correct.
Hopefully it's the right response. So yeah.
That's exactly right. I mean, you nailed it. That perfect, great example. This actually happens even before the pandemic. We've had to deal with this all the time in the ER and in other settings with STDs. So a patient comes in, a male comes in, he's having discharge, and is classic for gonorrhea or chlamydia, and then we do the testing, and then it becomes this weird thing because that's reportable to the CDC and the health authorities. But we first ask the patient to tell his contacts or her contacts that, by the way, you tested positive. But it's this weird thing of how do you balance, a public health nightmare, because you don't want gonorrhea and chlamydia spreading everywhere, with patient privacy. And so this is a challenge that we've had to deal with healthcare for a long time. With HIV, it was a huge deal. But again, there are protocols in place, and if you do it the right way, you can do it without exposing, again, like you said, if you say anybody in Gentlemen's Club, call us, that's awkward, right? But there are smarter ways of doing it. And honestly, even outside of infections, when women come in and you suspect something, you get them in a private room and you ask them, are you being abused? We're looking for domestic violence, for example. You don't just give them a sheet of paper that says discharge diagnosis, domestic violence, here's how to get help, because clearly that husband or partner can look at that paperwork. And so even outside of infections, we have to be, vigilant and smart about how we inform people and how we track down people. And in healthcare, we've known that for years. But then when it becomes politicized and people get involved, and sometimes they don't exactly know the right way of, like you said, getting the message out. And so it really has to be done in tandem. I, as one physician, can't fix COVID, right? We need politicians' help. Politicians on their own can't just do mandates without having doctors' advice. We really all need to work together, and all it takes is a couple people to screw it up, and then the whole thing goes awry. And in our country, we've had more than a couple people screw it up. So it's kind of why we are where we are, unfortunately.
Well, we've seen that here in Hawaii. I can tell you that. We've had every medical expert, every doctor, everyone has recommended that second test after quarantine. That to me, it just made so much sense. And the byproduct of that is the comfort level of our residents.
Exactly.
It goes up, and you have this, you feel a lot safer that we have this mechanism in place. We were a gentleman in Korea, South Korea, who was originally from Hawaii, created this app, and it works off of a barcode. So every restaurant, gentleman's club, whatever, you have this barcode. So you walk up, you scan the barcode with your cell phone. There's no information other than your cell number. If there's a positive triggered from your establishment, it automatically informs everybody that had been in that barcode or that establishment with a barcode, gets notified to go get a test. Simple, no name, no address, just your cell number. So once you hit the establishment hits the button, it sends out a mass text to everybody that hit that QR code at the time the infectious person was there. Done. And he offered it for free, and we turned it down, and that was the opportunity. So we understand about how politics and medicine, man. It's they got to work together, but it's like oil and water sometimes, and it's unfortunate. Yeah, it's so unfortunate.
Yeah, it's one of the ironic things is after 9/11, we stripped away a lot of privacy things under the Patriot Act and said we can frisk you, like we talked about earlier. TSA can frisk you, and we can search anyone and anything at any time. And everybody was like, our security matters so much that we're going to get rid of these, privacy things. And some people just speak up and said, this isn't right. As Ben Franklin said, if you give up liberty for security, you deserve neither. But basically the country said, you know what, okay, there's been a terrorist attack. We're willing to give up some privacy. And in fact, they gave up a lot, too much. And yet when there's a pandemic that has killed so many more people than 9/11, and it's still raging, by the way, all of a sudden people are like, oh, you want my cell phone number? That's crazy. No way. I don't trust you to have my cell phone number. Yeah, I'll go on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and post all sorts of nude photos of myself or whatever. I don't care about that. But God forbid a public health authority has my cell phone number to be able to contact trace. It's just, you can't fix dumb sometimes. Children can be educated. but adults who are willing to give up everything and all their information to TikTok or post 9/11, but aren't willing to give, the very basic information to public health authority just to be able to trace, not to give out personal information, just to be able to trace. They're willing to sell their information to Facebook. They're willing to give up privacies at the airport, but they won't give even a cell phone number to a public health authority who's trying to help. You can't fix them.
I have been patted down at TSA that in any other environment that would have been cause for a sexual assault complaint. Seriously, and I'm not making a joke. But that's one of the liberties we have, because the desire to travel is so great, right? You can overlook that guy tapping your groin because you have to. And when was the last time we had a terrorist attack? I mean, Lord have mercy. But like you said, man, we just want to. No, no way. You don't have no right to my cell number.
Exactly.
People are dying every single damn day, and I just don't get it, man. I don't get it.
If the virus were a human, and in particular a colored foreign human, everybody would happily given up their cell phone numbers and go out, given all their privacy to go attack this enemy. But because it's a virus and not a human, and in particular, not a colored foreign human, people just, don't have that hatred for it like they do for fellow humans of other countries. And so, yeah, like you said, you get frisked, I get frisked, everything, all these things are made. Remember the days when you could hug somebody goodbye right at the gate, right at the plane. Now you have to say goodbye to them like miles away while they walk into the airport. And that's just one example. And that's a minor inconvenience relatively. But here we are with, the whole economy has taken such a big hit. Everybody's lives have changed. And yet, like you said, people won't give the most basic information to be able to trace. I think under other countries, they're probably just laughing at us. I'm sure they are. We know they are. We've seen the video clips. I was just on CNN International, and so when they interview me, they really are amazed that our country is in the state it's in compared to the other countries that they often interview from and in. And it really is shocking to a lot of people.
Well, we are at the witching hour. It is 8 o'clock here and 2 o'clock there.
Yeah.
So, Doc, we appreciate you so much. I mean, we could go on for hours, but we're gonna end it just because we want you to get some rest. And I hope you're off tomorrow. I hope you're taking a day off tomorrow.
Fortunately, I don't have a clinical shift tomorrow. I've got a bunch of other stuff that I have to deal with, unfortunately, but nothing dangerous, just all medical stuff. But yeah, fortunately, I can sleep in a little bit. So, I appreciate you guys having me on. I always love chatting with you guys. And hey, man, you guys are in my thoughts, both of you, your whole state. And election season is coming up. I mean, we're in election season. The election is coming up, so who knows what the world will bring in just a couple of weeks. But in particular, who knows what the world will bring to your state while the people are traveling. I hope it goes okay. I hope everyone stays safe and healthy. And I'm hoping we'll be able to talk again, soon, and hopefully things will be on an upswing then, where things are getting better. But unfortunately, they may get worse before they get better. We'll see.
Charlie?
Well, it's always great to talk to you, Doc. So I want to extend my personal thank yous to you for being on and staying on this late. Later on when you get the chance, like the last time, you can go back, look at the comments. A lot of good comments from newer names that there's some that we don't recognize, and they've many of them have never seen you before. So they're really, it's an uptick. They're really excited with the information you shared. So thank you very much. To our viewers out there, thank you so much for joining us. Especially, we are so fortunate to get this man on, and it's very rare to get an insight from someone who's so passionate. And like you said, part of it is his culture. They're very passionate. And so, for you viewers out there, you got to get a glimpse of what Mel and I had the first time. And And whenever you get a chance to see him on CNN, on any of the news agencies, watch his comments. I mean, he's the real deal. So I'd like to say thank you to all of you. We brought the information. We're here to inform and educate as always. Mel?
Doc, yeah, I misspoke earlier. I said the mad doctor, but it was the angry doctor, not the mad doctor. Yeah, the nickname was the angry doctor, and it was we just don't have time for that. But anyway, if you didn't see our last show, just go to my channel, my YouTube channel, and all of you go to my YouTube channel and subscribe. That way you always get, I don't get paid for it. Okay. I'm not selling anything. Just go subscribe. So whenever we put up a new video, you get notified, but go backtrack. I can't remember when it was. When was that? March, April? I don't know, May, whenever it was.
Oh, no. It was about 3 months ago. Two, 3 months ago.
Okay.
Yep.
Whatever. Go look for his picture on the YouTube and go watch the last show. Because this guy was in a zone that was mellow in Arizona. He was in a zone, remember, just like Hawaii. And in a matter of a few days, it became a nightmare. Correct. And I'm not going to regurgitate what he said, but go watch it, because this is a guy that has been there, done that, and trying to, giving us his time to share his knowledge and insights. We appreciate so much, Doc. And know that you have an open invitation for us, man. Anytime if you got something you think might be interesting for our viewers, please, man, just reach out and we got you on, buddy. If you just like talk story and, drop F words, we can do that too. I mean, we just won't go live. We just won't go live. Anyway.
I appreciate that. And usually I'm even more agitated, as you guys know, but, late night shift and a late night here. So, for all the viewers, I usually am angrier, but also you guys have a very calming presence. And so thank you again for having me. My wife loves you guys. I love you guys, and mahalo. And I look forward to speaking again next time.
Right on, Doc. Mahalo as well. And we look forward to that day where you and your lovely wife will be here in Hawaii and spending some time with Charlie and I. And we're doing a luau. We're going to do a huge luau. We have not diverted. We're going to do that when it's all safe. And you're going to be one of our honored guests. I can promise you that. It's going to be fun, man. It's going to be super fun.
I look forward to that, both to the day when travel is safe, and especially to making both her and my first trip to the greatest state in this country, Hawaii.
And we'll make sure it's one that you'll never forget, sir.
Mahalo and aloha.
Hey, Doc, you stay safe. We love you, man. God bless. You guys, all of you, tomorrow night we off. We'll be back Monday night, 7 o'clock. Everybody take care, especially now when we got these influx of visitors. You guys be safe. Wear your mask. Yep. Wash your hands. Social distance. Stay away from the big parties. Aloha, you guys. Stay safe. Good night.
Good night.